Hello everyone, how are you all? Hope you all are fine and safe. Welcome to 5th standard. Students, today we will start our EVS 2 subject. In this, our first chapter is What is History? Students, do you have any idea about what is history or the meaning of history? Okay, I will tell you the meaning of history in a very simple term. History can be divided as his plus story. His means past and story means tales. It means the meaning of history is the story or the tales of past. Here we are going to discuss basically about 4 points, that is history, a science that tells us about events in the past. Second point is the scientific method of history. Third point is history and us. And the fourth point is the past and the future. Let's start our first point of today, that is history, a science that tells us about events in the past. In 4th standard, we studied about Shivaji Maharaj, his childhood, education, and struggle for the establishment of the Swaraj. Now, the time before the birth of Shivaji Maharaj was about 400 years from now, or we can say 400 years ago. So, whenever we have to talk about any happenings which has happened around 400 years from now, we can say that happening as 4 years ago, or any other happening which has happened 200 years ago from now as to 200 years ago. So, for our convenience, we divide time in our mind by using different terms like now, sometimes, after sometimes, or today, or tomorrow, or the last year, or the next year. In this way we divide it. Now, today, this year are the terms that indicate the present. And sometimes ago, yesterday, last year, after sometimes are the terms that indicate the past. And tomorrow, next year are the terms that indicate the future. So the time that has already gone by is the past. The time that we are in now at present is called the present, and the time that is yet to come in future, which has not come or which is not now, that is yet to come in future, is called the future. The time that has already gone by is the past. It includes many events which has already had taken place. For example, last year you were in 4th standard, or you are 10 years old today. You are 10 years old today. It means that the event of your birth has happened 10 years ago in the past. Similarly, after 10 years you will be 20 years old. The time gone between today and the day of birth is of 10 years. So, whenever you are describing any of the event during the time of your birth, you can describe that event as 10 years ago. Or whenever you are talking about any of your mischief which has happened when you were 3 years old and now you are 10 years ago, so you can describe that mischiefs as 7 years ago. So here in these examples, we are now talking about our past. So the science that tries to understand past events in a very scientific way is called history. Means understanding any events that have already happened in the past in a scientific way means providing proper proof of the event is called history. Now, our next point is the scientific method of history. So, here in 3rd standard and 4th standard, as a part of environmental study, we become acquainted with the science. And the special characteristics of science is that their facts or evidence can be tested by performing experiment which can be repeated anytime or anywhere. For example, salt dissolved in water. This is a fact. And this fact that salt dissolved in water can be tested by ourselves by performing actual experiment. For example, you can take a glass of water and put a spoon of salt in that. After some time, you will find that salt has completely dissolved in water. This fact that salt dissolved in water can be tested anytime and anywhere. This is a fact. So the method of using a number of different tests to determine whether the evidence is reliable, means trustworthy, is called the scientific method. For example, earthen pots. Earthen pots were discovered by digging at various places, and people guess that the Stone Age man used earthen pots. This is an evidence. Now, in order to test whether this evidence is reliable or has truth, various methods are used, and which are called scientific methods. And there are many things that happened since our birth, and the stories of our childhood are told by our parents, grandparents, and relatives. Sometimes we find differences in the story. We need to examine or study the details of each one's story to decide which story is correct. That is called the method of studying history in a scientific manner, scientific way. And see children, it is not possible to conduct experiment to recreate the events that have already happened in the past. Therefore, the method of presenting history is quite different from science, even though history uses scientific method at every stages, like collecting evidence, testing the evidence, and while putting it together when required with help is also taken from science. And history is not written only on the basis of imagination. It is written on the basis of proper happenings in a scientific way, scientific manner. There are various sources which help in writing history, like ancient objects, structures, sculptures, pots, coins, inscriptions, copper plates, books, manuscripts, traditional stories, and songs remembered over many generations. All these sources are called the sources of writing history. So, the sources can be divided into three categories as material sources, written sources, and oral sources. In order to find out what happened in the past and how it happened, evidence from these sources are collected and tested its reliability, its truthness. With the help of the evidence, past events are put in a proper sequence and a historical account is written, and this is the scientific method of studying history. For example, Shivaji Maharaj. Shivaji Maharaj has established Swaraj. This is an event which has happened in the past. In order to accept this fact, we need to collect various sources which provide information about the establishment of the Swaraj and test the authenticity of the sources. This is the scientific method of study. Thank you.